let's talk about the Texans. Who would have thought the Texans would be so much better than the Eagles right now? We knew they're going to be better than the Redskins. So what do you think about the Texans? Only 2 teams in the AFC have a better record.
Right now, they're doing everything that they said they were going to do in the offseason. And we sounded like a broken record in the offseason when we were saying playoffs are bust, playoffs are bust. But right now, they're living it. The addition of Wade Phillips has been huge, and the emergence of a backup running back is something that I've been keeping my eye on. When you look at Ben Tate and what Arian Foster have been able to accomplish together, it's amazing. They're both in the top 10 in the rushing category. They're the only team who can say that they have 2 running backs in the top 10. They're both on pace to rush for 1,000 yards. Arian Foster has 656 yards to date. Ben Tate has 623. I don't know if Ben Tate's going to get there because when Andre Johnson returns, he's not going to have as many carries, and Ben Tate needs to average 74 yards a game to get to that 1,000-yard mark. But that would be a great story for a Hall of Fame writer like you to write about if you have 2 running backs have 1,000 yards by the end of the season.
If he keeps rushing at a 5.6-yard pace, he might have a shot. If they do that, they'll be only the 6th pair since the merger in 1970 to do that. Right now, they're the first twosome to rush for 100 yards each twice since 2008. If they do it a 3rd time, they'll be the first one to do it since Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier back for the Steelers in their great regime during the 1970s. So that's how hot they are right now.
And we're talking about those 2 guys. We've mentioned Ben Tate, Arian Foster, but when you're talking about the success of running backs, you have to give credit to the offensive line and the way that they've mastered this zone blocking system. It's worth mentioning.
The fullback, too, Lawrence Vickers has kicked some serious tail in the last 2 games. James Casey is getting healthy, so they got 3 backs, really counting Derek Ward. He's healthy, and they got 2 fullbacks who can clear pass. They're going to keep running, and I don't care about all these guys about to break Dan Marino's record on a pace to break it. You still got to run and play defense if you want to win in the playoffs, and that's the way they're headed right now. Well, Matt Schaub, he's not throwing the ball as much, passing down. What do you think? Are you a problem with that?
Oh, no, it's all ties into what we were talking about to open up this show. You see the success of the offensive line, Ben Tate, Arian Foster. When you have guys that are getting so much yards on the ground, your quarterback doesn't need to throw the ball as much, and he doesn't have his #1 receiver. So Matt Schaub, when you look at the stats are down, but he's doing what he wants to do. He's winning games. He's protecting the ball. You know, he's had his interception here or there, but who hasn't? He's playing good team football. He's being a very good manager. A lot of quarterbacks don't go into the season saying, I'm going to be a good manager. But when you're as effective as you've been on defense and on the running game, that's all you need to be until Andre gets back, and I'm sure they'll open it up. So I have no problem, and I'm sure most Texan fans have no problem with the drop of stats when you look at Matt Schaub because it's just working and it's effective.
When Andre comes back, I'm hoping it'll be after the bye week against Jacksonville. I don't think he needs to play against Tampa, but when he comes back, something to keep in mind, Matt Schaub is either first or second to Drew Brees in throwing on the road for the last 4 years. He's had some of his best games in cold weather, like in Green Bay, so he's been even better away from Reliant Stadium, and that's good to know, especially as they head to Cincinnati. That would be one of the biggest games.
That's great to know because you know he has the ability. He's shown in the past with his 4,000 yards passing, the Pro Bowl MVP. Matt Schaub is a good quarterback. Just right now they haven't had to utilize his arms. They haven't had to utilize the passing, but it's just good and it's comfortable to know that if for whatever reason a team is taking away the run, they can go through the air. And I think that's why the Houston Texans are where they're at now, where they control their own destiny. You've been covering this team since their inception. How many times have you been able to say that they control their own destiny as whether or not they go to the playoffs? It was always, well, if Tennessee loses this game, or if Indianapolis is upset, or if Jacksonville doesn't win this game. It's all about what the Texans have to do. I think they could drop 2 more games and still have an easy road into the playoffs, though they don't want to hear that. I was over there at Reliant for the Taste of the Texans last night talking to a lot of the people, and they want to win out. They're taking it 1 game at a time, but make no bones about it. They feel like they could beat any and everybody on their schedule. That's what they want, and it's good for the Houston fan base to see a football team that controls their own destiny.
Bill Cowher, one of the greatest coaches ever, he's on TV. He predicted they're going to win out and get home field advantage. Now, I can't imagine that. They're capable of it. If they win at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's got a brutal schedule. They still have to play Baltimore and Pittsburgh 2 times each. They've only beaten 1 team, Buffalo, with a winning record. So ultimately, maybe they won't be in it. But Baltimore has that tiebreaker advantage over Houston. Houston's got it over Pittsburgh. Of course, the AFC East figures into this, but it's okay to dream. You mentioned the last time we talked about them controlling their own destiny. It was 2005 when they controlled their own destiny to the top pick in the draft. All they had to do was lose out and not screw it up, and they did, and they got Mario Williams. Now, one of the things I'm talking about, the defense being number one. 30th last year, 32nd against the pass. Right now, it's phenomenal that they're number one. Why do you think they are?
You have to point to Wade Phillips. You know, they've added guys through the draft. You have young guys stepping up, 2 starter rookies. When you look at Brooks Reed and J.J. Watson, both those guys are playing like veterans. But Wade Phillips' system is just amazing. You see time and time again when blitzers are coming through untouched, whether it's the safety, outside linebacker, even the cornerback. So you have to give credit to the guy that's calling the play. And Wade Phillips has been he's been the biggest difference maker with this team.
And let's be honest, too, they've gone against Matt Hasselbeck, Blaine Gabbert, and Colt McCoy, the last 3. They got Josh Freeman coming up. The Bucs are 3-1 at Raymond James Stadium with 3 wins in a row. And Freeman last year was on that precipice of really stepping up to be an elite quarterback. Kind of dropped back. First time they're going up against a really big, powerful back in LeGarrette Blount, who packs a punch. No pun intended. How do you think they're going to do against a big back like that running between the tackles?
I think it's going to be a very good test, but just the way that they've been swarm tackling. You know, when you see these guys tackle, everyone's been talking about Brian Cushing's season, how great of a season he's having. But what I've noticed, even when he's making his plays, there's always 3 or 4 other Texans around him, and that's the key to tackling these big backs, to make sure you get a lot of bodies on them, because just one man can't do it. So I think they're going to be just fine as long as they're hitting them with 2 or 3 guys at the same time. If you have a bunch of individuals trying to tackle LeGarrette Blount, then it'll be a long day.
Mario Williams had a lot of critics and still does. There's people even saying don't re-sign him. He got Brooks Reed. But he's still the leading sacker on the team, and he hadn't been around since the 5th game. Antonio Smith has none since he went out. Tell us how Mario, losing him, has impacted the pass rush.
You know, it's big, and it's going to really come to play when they make it to the playoffs, when they play an elite team or a pretty good team. Mario Williams, not only was he getting a lot of sacks this year, he was getting pressure. It seems like any time he put his hand in the dirt and just laid his earbacks and got off the ball, he was either hitting the quarterback or disrupting the quarterback's pass. You missed that. Those are things that don't show up on the stat sheet, but trust me, offensive coordinators, offensive players, they know when somebody's in their quarterback's face, and that's what they miss. Yes, you're seeing sacks, you're seeing Brooks Reed come free on blitzes, but what are you seeing when it's 4 down linemen, no blitz is called, and you're rushing the passer? Are you seeing somebody get to the quarterback? That's where you see the drop off. Not only that, you talk about depth. Mario Williams being the starter and Brooks Reed backing him up, that's great depth at that position. But now with Brooks Reed being the starter, if he needs a break, if he needs to get some water on the sideline, who are you bringing in? Jesse Nading, Brian Brayman, those are guys that still have to prove themselves.
I'll tell you something that really irks me. We talked about this last week. I wrote about it in my blog, and I was amazed at how many fans think it's okay for Neil Rackers to make tackles, and if he gets hurt, he's just a kicker. Audition them. I noticed there's 2 teams having to audition kickers because theirs are hurt, and they don't have any. And here it is coming down to crunch time of the playoffs. And there was Rackers. I thought Kubiak got the message to him. There he is charging down the field to make another tackle. As a former player, what would you think if your kicker got hurt doing that at a time when you're trying to make the playoffs?
If he gets hurt, then you're upset with him. But Neil Rackers, he has that football mentality. I'm sure you know the story. He was a soccer player. He received some scholarships to go play soccer, but he had to walk on as a football player. So just that story alone lets you know that he's a football-minded guy. He wants to go in there, mix it up, and get the respect of his teammates. But you're absolutely right. Kickers are invaluable. They put points on the board. He's a very good kicker, and you don't want to lose those points because he's trying to do something that he's not and be a defensive player and make tackles.